Today we are talking 16 movies that released in the month of November. Let's get into it. What is up, flick fans? Welcome back to my channel. As always, today we are ranking all of the movies I was able to check out in November. All of the new releases, at least, because I'm also watching Harry Potter on the side. Expect a tier list soon, but right now I'm ranking all of the November new releases that I watched. Now, I won't lie to you. There are a couple movies that are releasing in December that I have seen. Soul, Promising Young Woman. I'm about to watch Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, but expect those movies on a future tier list. Right now, we're going to start out with The Croods, A New Age. So let's go ahead and throw this movie on the OK tier. And of course, guys, if you're joining, whether it's the first time or you come back to this series every single month, if you want to drop a thumbs up button and let me know in the comments down below what is your favorite and least favorite movie of November. And maybe, just maybe, some of these will end up in my best of the year list. We'll have to find out. But first, this sequel to The Croods is actually one that I had a pretty decent time with. I'm not going to sit back and say it was as fun or original as the original, but the voice cast, the ones that are back, are fantastic. And then you have newcomers like a Peter Dinklage. That adds so much. You have the Bettermans, who are, of course, the better version, at least they think, of the family that we know and love. These two families clash. We have hijinks. We have adventure. We have this grand visual epic movie that I think kids are going to find a lot in, and I think adults aren't going to have the worst time in the theater. And I do believe this is a movie at least worth checking out in the theater if you're willing to do that, because visually it's one of the best animated movies of the year. It looks fantastic. Now, the story, a little cliche. It is very familiar. We've seen it before, but overall, I enjoy spending time with this family enough, and all of the references that we get to modern day from all the prehistoric elements to say this is at least a sequel worth watching if you're a fan of the original, but it's not better than the original in my opinion. Next up, we have a movie called Don't Listen, my most recent review on this channel, and I'm going to go ahead and throw this film as well on the OK tier. I think Don't Listen does a lot right. It starts out as a horror movie that we've seen before. The kid, he's hearing some weird things. Something's going on with him. There's a disconnect between he and his father. So we've seen that movie countless times. But then something happens at the end of the first act, and it turns into a different horror movie entirely. You have a paranormal investigator that comes in, communication with some weird spirits in the house, and then it's trying to uncover what is actually going on here with the investigator, his daughter, and the father. And some of these horror tropes that we're very familiar with are used here. Maybe one too many cheap jump scares, and I did have some questions that I needed answered by the end of the day, but the way that the beginning connects to the end, the way that the movie plays out and actually has a few effective jumps or scares that don't utilize jump scares, I think Don't Listen does a lot right, even though at the end of the day it falls just short of being a truly good movie. But I still think it's okay, and if you're a fan of that genre, then I would say Don't Listen is worth a watch on Netflix. Then we have Happiest Season, one of the first Christmas movies we're going to talk about on today's list, dropped on Hulu, but I actually think Happiest Season is the best of the three so far. I'm going to throw it on the good tier. Kristen Stewart, Mackenzie Davis, Allison Brie. The film is crammed with talent, and the family, they're not very accepting of Mackenzie Davis's character, what she's been accomplishing throughout her life, but really all of their daughters, they each have their own disconnect with their family, and of course everyone's getting together for the holidays, but Mackenzie Davis, she is actually with Kristen Stewart's character, but she's afraid to tell her parents. So you can only imagine the hijinks that ensue. My only major issue with this movie is the fact that everyone was so mean to Kristen Stewart's character, and then at the end of the day, we're kind of expected to forgive some of the mistakes that are made earlier in the movie, when I'm sitting here like, I don't know if I'd forgive these people for how mean they were to this character. So you also fall into these Christmas tropes that we've seen countless times before. It isn't a perfect movie, but it is definitely entertaining enough, and the cast is spectacular. I also think the direction is really good. Happiest Season was a nice surprise on Hulu, and one of the better Christmas movies of the year so far. Let's go ahead and throw this Lego Holiday Special on that good tier right where it belongs. Listen, the Lego Star Wars Holiday Special is not one that you're going to watch if you're an adult, you don't have kids, and say, wow, this is everything I had hoped for and more. It is a movie built for the younger generation, and that's exactly what I believe it accomplishes. It brings together everything that we love as longtime fans, and I think whether you love the prequels, the sequels, or the OG trilogy, it brings together all those things in a fun way. It also caters towards its target audience in a way that I believe is going to have a lot of people smiling. Some of the jokes, they're silly. The Emperor, he kind of reminds me of Michael Scott from The Office. He's a little bit ridiculous, but it's all satirical, man. This is a holiday special that is as fun and satirical as something like Spaceballs is, but it also takes us on this journey through Star Wars and combines all of these things, and I thought it was a good time. I had a good time with the Lego Star Wars holiday special on Disney+, and I think on ABC, on TV, if you still have that. Then we have Mortal, which unfortunately goes on the meh tier. Listen, I like the Wolf brothers, Alex Wolff and Nat Wolff, I think does an okay job in this movie. He's a little dark and brooding, and this, in its own weird way, is a superhero-esque origin story dealing with Norse mythology. This guy who doesn't really know what his powers are, why he's doing what he's doing, can't really control himself. But then it turns into, by the end, something that I found to be a nice surprise, interesting. But the film itself, it is directed, and the pacing kind of comes across in a way that isn't as entertaining as I believe it should have been. I just wasn't all there on the story. I found it to be a bit dull at points. I didn't love the way it progressed. Now, the end was extremely entertaining. I enjoyed the third act. I like the resolution, the way that everything wraps up. But overall, I think Mortal is a bit of a missed opportunity. I don't blame any of the actors. I don't necessarily blame how the story progressed. It's more so the dialogue, or lack thereof, and the fact that the movie itself is just kind of bland in a way. That sounds mean. I'm sorry. You know what's not bland? The Christmas Chronicles 2. Look, this movie is ridiculous. I understand that this franchise, it has some people that do not love the way that it progresses. It's over the top in every way possible, but what allows this franchise to work, in my opinion, is Kurt Russell. And I think the Christmas Chronicles 2, if I can get the word out, deserves to be at least on the okay tier, if not more. This is a fun film. It's a fun sequel. There is a ridiculous and over-the-top musical number at an airport that really gets me in the Christmas spirit, and I think that's what this film is intending to do. It's also dealing with the mythology of Christmas. The character of Belsnickel is our enemy here, played by Julian Dennison, who we know and love from something like a Deadpool 2 and Hunt for the Wilder People, and he's great, and their chemistry or lack thereof is really fun. And the adventure, you know, we've seen it 1,000 times, and a couple of times where they fall into those traps of, oh, we're going to do that Christmas thing, and then that Christmas thing. And there are parts of the story that aren't as interesting, but I think the overall package is fun. Families are going to enjoy it. And if you're looking for a really entertaining, Christmassy Christmas movie, Christmas Chronicles 2, I think that's the one for you. Then we have Mosul, directed by Matthew Carnahan, produced by the Russo brothers. This one is genuinely close for me, but I think I'm going to go ahead and throw it on the good tier. I had a good time with Mosul. This is a movie that is brutal at times, is a war movie that is unlike really any other that has come out this year. So when ISIS takes these individuals' homes, their families, their city, one group of men fights to take it all back. And this is actually based on true events. It is a tragic film when you look at the circumstances, and I had a lot of comments on my review of people that have lived in this area and that had to experience the repercussions of this very event, and it really is sad when you look at it from that light. Now, the movie isn't perfect for sure. I think there are a couple of narrative issues, and their mission was a little fuzzy at the beginning. I wanted to know exactly what they were doing. Then they get caught up in something else, and they have to take down one specific thing. So I like that it became more clear. I like the acting. I think the chemistry, the camaraderie is great. And one character arc in particular goes from a man who is just unsure, is this where I'm supposed to be, to let's go, I'm part of the team now, I'm ready. So Mosul, I think, is a very entertaining war movie. It is on Netflix right now for you guys to check out. Superintelligence, man, This is unfortunate. I am teetering between bad and awful. I gave this a really low score, but I think there may be enough, if you're a Melissa McCarthy fan, if you like movies that are a bit different, to say maybe it's bad, not awful. That's not a compliment, Austin. I mean, what do I say? I guess I've seen worse movies this year because I've seen a lot of movies this year, but Ben Falcone and Melissa McCarthy, I understand that they're in a relationship in real life, but stop making movies together. They don't work. They haven't worked thus far. Superintelligence is a mishmash of so many different genres and ideas and concepts that should be funny in theory, but I wasn't really laughing throughout the movie. And when I'm not laughing, I'm paying attention to how bad the actual movie is. And Superintelligence is just not good. It goes from full-on thriller to sci-fi to romantic comedy to somewhat of like this post-apocalyptic or apocalyptic war film. They're all in this room together at the end for some reason with one of our characters who shouldn't really be there. And then Melissa McCarthy, she's the key to everything, and James Corden is the artificial intelligence. It's the persona that it takes up, and that back and forth just didn't really work for me. It didn't feel natural, even though I don't know if that's the intention. So Superintelligence, it's on HBO Max if you want to check it out. I like Melissa McCarthy, I do, but I do not like when she makes a decision like this. It's not good. Nope. Then we have Jingle Jangle, which I actually thought was a pretty good movie. Another movie that is getting me in the Christmas spirit. And look, it isn't perfect for sure. I do think there is one aspect of the story that I maybe would have done a bit differently, and it is very predictable. But beyond that, you look at the cast. Forrest Whitaker is genuinely great. The standout for me, though, other than the lead, she's awesome, but Keegan-Michael Key, I did not expect him to pull this off. He pulled it off, and his musical number is one of the most entertaining things I've watched all year. It is a musical, by the way. It is shot like a stage play, so the film style is maybe not what you're expecting, but it is so much fun, and it has that Christmas magic, and it is an adventure for everyone, and I just really enjoy everything about this movie. Again, it's not perfect. We have yet to see a movie on the great tier from this list, but Jingle Jangle, man, another film to get you in that Christmas spirit. It made me want to sing, but I'm not going to do that because I don't sing. Let's move on to Hillbilly Elegy, and this one is going to ruffle some feathers because I had some people in my review that were very frustrated with me for not liking this movie. But I don't think it is horrible. I've seen a lot of people, not a small amount, a big amount, say this is one of the worst movies of the year. I do not believe it is one of the worst movies of the year. I think clearly there's a lot going for it here. You have Glenn Close, who is just spectacular as Mama, which is what I used to call my grandmother. And then you have Amy Adams, who is really trying her best to give a great performance here. Unfortunately, I just don't think her script was all that great. I think there are aspects of her character that we could have explored more, and of course what she goes through is relatable. Drug addiction is a big thing, especially where I'm from, Appalachia, and if anyone is allowed to critique this movie, I think I have a good reason to, because this is dealing with, I grew up in a holler in eastern Kentucky. I grew up in the mountains of Appalachia, so I feel like some of these elements of this movie just weren't as realistic as I would have wanted them to be, even though what they're dealing with addiction and what a lot of these families are going through, that is real. That is very real. And I do think there are ideas in this book. J.D. Vance here is the one for me that just didn't quite get there. I think the character of J.D. Vance is good in theory, but the performance, the lead performance, wasn't great. I think the younger performance was maybe a little bit better. There was more there. But I just think a lot of things about this film fell flat, unfortunately, even though there are very good ideas present. And I haven't read the book. I'm sure the book is great. But overall, Hillbilly Elegy felt a bit like an Oscar Beatty film for me, unfortunately. And I say unfortunately because I wanted to like this movie quite a bit. I just didn't quite get there. Next up is Operation Christmas Drop. Let's go ahead and throw that on the bad tier. You have a congressional aide warming up to a generous captain, and their goal here is to give out some gifts for the Christmas season. You have Kat Graham, you have Alexander Ludwig, who both of these actors I'm a fan of. Not a lot of chemistry here. Not a lot of chemistry. It is very and I don't want to use the word, it is very much like one of those Christmas movies you'll see on television. You probably know the specific channels. And when you don't have chemistry between the two leads, and when you don't have characters that you care all that much about, because I've seen this story so many times, unfortunately, it is a film that isn't going to work. Now, are there cute moments? Yes. Are there romantic aspects of the story? I'm like, oh, that's sweet. And it has a good heart. And I like the fact that it is for families. But overall, Operation Christmas Drop just didn't quite get there. It's on Netflix if you want to check it out. But, let's throw Mangrove on the great tier. This is the first part of the Small Axe anthology from Steve McQueen on Amazon Prime. It is a movie, even though technically it's not Oscar eligible because it's part of this anthology on television, so it's looked at as a television episode, but this is one of the better movies I've seen this year. It is just a great representation of what happened in the UK with this place called the Mangrove, where they consistently and constantly harassed this man who was just trying to run his business. And then you kind of delve into Trial of Chicago 7 territory with the court case and these individuals trying to defend themselves. And it just gets really intense. It's thrilling. It's dramatic. I think the script is very clean. And Mangrove is a great first part of this Small Axe anthology. Now, I do plan on checking out the rest of the films from Steve McQueen. I may have a recap at the end of it, but this first part, man, is really, really good. I love the performances, especially Letitia Wright, who really surprised me, and it's just an overall solid watch. Now, I don't think it's as stylistic as the Trial of Chicago 7. Maybe I needed a bit more of that, but overall, not much to complain about here. Then we have The Call, the film that I just talked about on Netflix. And this one's actually tough. I'm teetering on the good and great tiers. I am going to put it on good, but keep in mind it is closer to great than some of these other films. I just think this movie does a lot of things right. It's all about these two girls, one who lives in the 90s, one who lives in modern day, and one girl is able to call the other girl who lives in the same house. And from there, crazy things begin to happen. They're talking to each other. They're starting to become friends. And then you realize that maybe one of these characters does not have the best intentions. And that's when things really go off the rails. I had a great time with this movie, actually, even though there are a few things there that keep it from me putting it on that great tier. Some moments that I'm questioning, some ideas that didn't really come to fruition, but overall, if you want a crazy, dramatic thriller that will mess with your mind and actually features some good horror elements, it is one of the better Netflix films of the year for sure, and I would definitely check it out. Then we have The Life Ahead. I'm going to throw this one on the okay tier. It's a very sweet movie about a Holocaust survivor with a daycare business who takes in a 12-year-old street kid who recently robbed her. This is a film specifically about the performances. You have this motherly figure to this child who just does not want to even give any respect to authority, but obviously things are going to progress in a way that, is a bit predictable, and they're going to find each other in a very interesting way. It does get very emotional towards the end. I think the movie itself could have been a lot better. What drives this film is the actual performances between our two leads that are just spectacular, especially this young boy who I'm excited to see what he does next. So overall, a good performance piece, an okay movie, and a story that progresses in a very predictable way, but it's definitely worth a watch if you have time on Netflix. Then we have Run. Run goes on the great tier. I just thought this film was so much fun. Yes, we talk predictability, but if the film is executed, in this case, it's more so about the journey than it is the resolution for me. If it's executed in such a way, I don't mind that I see where it's going. And I did see where it's going all the way up until the last shot, which was shocking, dark, unexpected. Run runs through Sarah Paulson's performance. She is spectacular. I think everyone in this movie is great. It is expertly directed by Anish Chaganty that does a great job of giving us this fast-paced, crazy thriller that doesn't waste any time, giving us maybe some character development we could have used, but overall, I had a great time with Run. I know everyone didn't like it as much as me. That's okay. It's on Hulu right now. A great thriller. And then we have Blumhouse's Freaky that goes on the good tier to round out this tier list. Freaky, you know, that body swap movie you kept seeing commercials for, featuring Catherine Newton, who is fantastic, especially when they swap bodies, and she is the slasher killer. And then Vince Vaughn, who gives one of the most fun performances of the year. I just had a great time with this movie. It is definitely flawed. There are definite moments that are a bit tonally inconsistent. It's very satirical, but it's also very dark, and I didn't love every decision from the characters, but in terms of it being funny, check. In terms of it having great performances, check. And then it's just really fun. I think we could have shaved about 10 minutes off of the ending, but overall, we talked Blumhouse hits and misses. This is a definite hit for me, and it's one of the more fun experiences of definitely the Halloween season this year. So here is my list. It is time to start ranking these movies. I'm going to give you guys my ranking from my least to most favorite. And let's get started at the bottom here, talking about my least favorite movie of the year, which is definitely Superintelligence, followed by Operation Christmas Drop. I'm going to throw Mortal below Hillbilly Elegy, Hillbilly Elegy being the better film in my opinion for sure. Then on the OK tier, we're going to put Croods at the bottom, followed by The Life Ahead. And actually, this looks pretty good, Christmas Chronicles 2, and then Don't Listen at the top of that tier. On this good tier, I believe I'm going to put Mosul at the bottom, followed by the Star Wars Holiday Special. Jingle Jangle will be next for me, followed by Happiest Season, and then Freaky, followed by The Call, which again gets very close to that great tier. And then on the great tier, I am going to keep Run in that number 2 spot, meaning my number 1 favorite movie of the month was Mangrove, part of the Small Axe Anthology on Amazon Prime for you guys to see right now. I want to say thank you so much for staying for this entire video or skipping around using the time codes. Whatever you guys did, I appreciate it. Come back next month because, well, we're going to have a lot. We're going to have my best of the year, worst of the year, best TV shows, best Netflix shows, and of course, my December tier list. You guys are truly the best. Stay tuned this week. Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, Mank, possibly a review for Soul, Selena the series, Big Mouth Season 4, lots of things that I'm probably forgetting. All right, I'll see you soon.